Welcome to the Commonwealth Policy Center's Candidate Forum for Senate District 17. I'm Richard Nelson, Executive Director of the Commonwealth Policy Center and your host. Senate District 17 comprises Kenton, Scott, and Grant counties. 20-year incumbent and Senate Majority Leader Damon Thayer is retiring, and that means there's an open seat. Vying for this seat are two Republicans from Scott County, Matt Nunn and Julia Jaddock. Thank you both for attending this forum. As I shared with you before we started recording, this is a forum. It is not a debate. The purpose here is to let voters know who you are, what you stand for, and what you would do if you were elected to the Kentucky State Senate. So the first question, we're going to start with opening statements. And Matt, since on my screen you are on the top, I'm going to start with you first. Tell us, if you could, keep it to about 2 minutes, why you're running for office, a little bit about yourself, family, work history, and give us an introduction.
Thank you, Richard. I'm running for office because as a husband, father of two, small business owner, it's important to me that this district and our Commonwealth remains a great place to raise a family and pursue the American dream. I've lived the American dream. I love to tell my story. And I just want to make sure that this remains a great place for my children and grandchildren and all the people watching this, their children and grandchildren, to do the same. And I think in order to do that, we need someone with conservative values, but also an ability to get things done, proven experience of getting things done to achieve that goal. My experience as a small business owner, a commissioned officer in the United States Army, and as an executive at Toyota 2 Show, has given me that experience. It's given me the ability to look at a problem from a variety of different perspectives. It's taught me to listen well and understand a problem at a deep level, come up with creative solutions to those problems, but also build consensus around ideas. And I've got, a long, well-documented career of effective leadership and doing those things and supporting conservative ideals. So those are the reasons why I believe I'll be an effective legislator for this district, and that's why I'm running.
Oh, very good. Julia Jaddock, thanks again for joining us. Tell the voters and those watching who you are and why you're running for Senate District 17.
Yes, thank you, Richard. My name is Julia Jaddock, and I'm running for State District 17, as you said, and I'm running because we need an unwavering conservative to keep Kentucky moving forward. As your senator, I will bring hope to the heart of Kentucky. People are coming to Kentucky right now, Richard, almost by the droves because their communities have been plagued with social, economic, and moral decay. They're looking for a better land. They're looking for a wholesome and peaceful place to live, a place to grow their business and to build their families. I ask, what are we going to give them? We are right now 10 years out from where they are and where they've left. What do we want to be in Kentucky? This election is very important. It cannot only be about taxes and beneficial growth, though we need those things. It must put at the forefront faith and family values that are representative of Kentuckians. This will result in healthy business growth. This will result in healthy communities and strong family life. Kentucky can be a beacon for our nation as a voice on how to bring about conservative change. As your leader, we will work together to bring hope not only to the heart of Kentucky, but to our great United States. I'm a full-time mother of 4 grown children with 25 years of small business ownership experience, a teacher, and now I'm serving our great Commonwealth as children's director at Central Church in Georgetown, Kentucky. Throughout my work life and as a mother, I have lived and taught the values of respect, responsibility, and accountability. This election is about integrity. It's about bringing dignity, honor, and respect to the state Senate, so that the people of Kentucky can have a voice in Frankfort.
Okay.
Kentucky's headed in a good
Julia,
direction.
thank you.
Yes, you bet. Yeah.
I'm sorry, that was a little more than 2 minutes. Good. Thank you. And you'll have a chance to follow up and clarify if you'd like. So related to both of your opening comments, One of the top issues this last legislative session, an issue of concern for the voters across the Commonwealth, is education. Matt Nunn, I'm going to go to you again with this. You say on your website that education is a cornerstone of a prosperous society, and that you're dedicated to ensuring that every child in Kentucky has access to a high-quality education, and that you'll support initiatives that empower educators, enhance school safety, and provide students with the skills they need to succeed in an increasingly competitive global economy. You do go into more detail about your education policy, but you've not mentioned school choice, which was a hot issue this last General Assembly session. In fact, House Bill 2 passed, and it's going to be on the ballot in November. And this allows for the possibility of school choice in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. First of all, how would you have come down on House Bill 2, the possibility of expanding to school choice in the Commonwealth?
I would have supported it. I'm thankful that the voters of the Commonwealth are going to get to have their voices heard this fall. I think that's the right approach. And so I'm thankful that everyone's going to get that opportunity. And so we'll vote yes or no this fall as a Commonwealth. And the reality is, though, if it passes, 85, 90%, whatever the number, a large, very, very large, overwhelming majority of our children are going to remain in traditional public schools as we know them today. They have to be effective at what they're intended to do, and that's educate our children and prepare them for prosperous, productive lives outside of high school. So that means they have to be places where parents feel safe sending those children, feel comfortable sending those children, where students feel safe and comfortable learning, and frankly, where teachers feel safe and comfortable working and want to work there. I talk a lot about my time in human resources, and I always say that if we had a location that had an employee retention issue, it would tell me there's some kind of issue there, some kind of problem, and we would investigate that issue. And it was usually more than one thing, but we would find the problem. And so the fact that we have such a challenge retaining teachers tells me that there's several issues that are challenges that are in our public schools, and we've got to get about fixing those. So again, teachers want to be there, parents want their kids there, and kids want to be there, and they're learning what they need to learn to be productive adults.
Very good. Julia Jaddock, would you have voted for House Bill 2, which simply allows for the possibility of school choice in the Commonwealth of Kentucky?
Yes, I would have voted for that, and I hope that I get to help guide what that looks like if we as Kentuckians choose, and I hope we do choose to have school choice and have public funds go to educating children of Kentucky outside of the public school setting as well.
One of the things I want to go back to COVID, when there were shutdowns of the public schools and kids were doing remote learning through their computers, parents became more aware of what was being taught in the classrooms. They actually were looking over the shoulders of their kids as they were doing their coursework. And in some cases, parents were alarmed, particularly in the bigger cities, as far as ideology that promoted sexual identities, ideology that promoted radical political theories, and that kind of thing. And this is apart from education. It's more of promotion of a worldview or promotion of a lifestyle instead of simply educating. Last year, the Kentucky General Assembly passed Senate Bill 150, which banned the teaching of gender ideology in K through 12. And they also went a little further than that as well. Another bill related to that is there was an attempt to give parents recourse when it came to objectionable books or really sexually explicit books in their public schools. So I want to go to the gender ideology issue. Matt, I don't know if you're very familiar with it, but just honing in on the gender ideology of Senate Bill 150, was that a good move of the state legislature to say, hey, in K through 12, we're not going to promote gender ideology in the public schools?
Absolutely, it was. Schools are intended to teach reading, writing, arithmetic. And I think if parents know that that's what's being taught, I go back to my previous statement, parents want to be comfortable with what their kids are learning. And I think, the vast majority of our teachers do that. And like you said, it's mostly in inner cities and larger cities where we're experiencing that. And has it happened in our Commonwealth? I'm sure it has. But the vast majority of our teachers do the right thing and aren't trying to do that. But I'm glad the legislature stepped in to put some guardrails or some barriers in place to ensure that it doesn't happen. Because again, that's not the purpose of schools. They're there to teach reading, writing, arithmetic. And so, with most things, the one bad apple kind of rots the barrel or gives a bad reputation. I think we've seen that happen too often with our teachers. Again, one or two bad actors create an environment or a mantra or a narrative, maybe a narrative is probably the right word, that affects all well-intentioned and good teachers. And that's not okay either.
And then the second issue is related to sexually explicit books in public schools. There was a case in Jefferson County middle schools where a parent discovered an absolutely pornographic book, brought it to the attention of the principal, and then brought it to the attention of the school board. At the end of the day, the school board chose to keep that book in their schools, in the school libraries. But the legislature did pass a bill that would give parents recourse to get those books removed. Is that something you would have been in favor of?
Absolutely. I'm not, a lot of people on the other side say, well, you're for banning books or whatever. That's not the case. But to your point, there is literature that's not appropriate for people of a certain age and certainly not appropriate in a school setting. And I think all of us can understand what that is. I've never seen those books, but I've seen too many videos on social media where concerned parents are reading those books aloud in school board forums, and I don't want to hear it. As a 46-year-old male who's married and all those things, I don't want to hear those books. I sure don't want my fourth grade child or any child reading those things. So,
yes. Very, very good. Thank you. Julia, are you aware of the gender ideology issue that was being discussed in Scott County public schools or in any other counties in your district?
Yes, and I a couple of things I think the public will want to know, and that is, and we've discussed this, is right now we have two major school districts, and one of them is in a district that we will represent, either Matter I will represent, and that is they have actually taken state Senate Bill 150 and had said, we are not going to follow all of that. That's our district right here. In Scott County, the preacher of my church has stepped up for his son in high school and said, hey, do you really want to be reading these things? And so the issue is right here at home, and it's right now. And this issue is like, it is being driven by a few, and it's not representative of the people of Kentucky. And I think COVID was, in a crazy way, was a gift to us as parents and as community members to go, whoa, what is happening in our public schools? And so I want to go back to the sense of the public school concern, the choice, school choice. I think this is something very important for Kentucky, and it falls along conservative lines on all aspects. It falls along conservative lines in that parents have choice, they have direction over their children, and then also it falls along even fiscal concerns. And when you look at a competitive market, I believe that school choice will only serve to help and facilitate our public schools to be a much better service to our community, because we have a competitive market.
Very good. So Julia, going back to Senate Bill 150, gender ideology in the schools, what I'm hearing from you is that you would have voted for that bill to keep gender ideology out of the schools.
Yes, I think that brings hope to Kentucky. I think it is good all around for Kentucky. And I think we need to, go ahead.
Yeah. Second question is this, and I want to move on and make sure that I'm giving equal time to both of you. The second question is, how do you respond to the issue of censorship when somebody says, Julia, you just want to keep these books out of the hands of students? Other parents might want those books in there. How do you respond to that charge that you're a book banner or that you are a censor?
When I think of the internet, and I think of our communities, and I picture an adult bookstore or an adult store of things that we really don't want in our communities. And I picture, could you imagine having the windows wide open on that and all material just posted on the windows? This is what we're doing in our schools. So it is a matter of decency. It is a matter of wholesomeness. And it is not a matter of censorship. It is a matter of morality. And these things do guide a society, a free society. Morality must be a part of what guides and directs us. And so
Okay.
it's a moral issue.
Very good. Matt, did you want to respond?
No,
Or add
but I
anything
just
to
want to
that?
say my wife is about to walk in the door and our dog is going to go absolutely nuts. So just going to mic.
Well, as long as it's barking at her and not at you, I think you're going to be okay. Matt, I'm going to go to you with this next question. And the topic is government too big? On your website, you say this: with your experience in risk management and financial oversight, you are committed to ensuring that taxpayer dollars are spent wisely and efficiently, and that you'll prioritize responsible budgeting, eliminate wasteful spending, and work to address long-term fiscal challenges facing the state without burdening future generations with debt. So going back to this topic, would you say state government is too big?
Yes. And I could leave it at that, but I know you want more. State and federal government. And I've seen it on both levels. So one of the many roles that I've had at Toyota 2 Show that they've asked me to fill, I was the general manager of our regulatory compliance department. So our specialists, our experts in the field were leading us through import compliance, export compliance, hazmat, all these different things. And I saw there the burdens that too much regulation places on business and the way it constrains business and the way it adds unnecessary costs to business. I've also seen it at the state level. My wife and I opened a small business in 2016, and the challenges that I faced just trying to open a business just to really achieve what most people would call part of the American dream, being your own boss, opening a business. It was a significant challenge going through all the red tape, all the regulations to get that done. And I'm sure that hinders, if not completely stops, a lot of businesses before they can ever get to the point of opening the doors. It can be an imposing task. Now, fortunately, I did have that experience from the corporate world. I knew how to navigate those things from my experience. And so we probably had a little bit of an advantage there. But I can see how it could strain so many potential businesses, and that's not a good thing. A thriving small business community is the key to as a huge economic engine for any community, any state. And so too much regulation inhibits that, and we have to remove those barriers.
Very good. Thank you, Matt. Julia, is government, particularly state government, too big?
It is. We've been moving in the right direction on that, but when our budget is extraordinary and we are still trying to pay back things with our retired teachers and that kind of thing, we need to continue that focus. We need to hold on to that. There's a couple of examples I'll give you, and one deals with old laws on the book that just need to be removed and they're not beneficial, and then another deals with making sure we're pushing things through so that we're not slowing down just basic trades work and things. So I was talking with a group of trades leaders in our trades, and they were talking about must issue, just the simplicity of ensuring practical things happen, and they happen with expediency. Those are the kind of things our government needs to be doing, and we need to be releasing regulation that is just choking things down. The other side of it, that part would be speaking with people in the auto industry, and they just took a law off the books that required and actually created the new law that allowed the sheriff's department to work with local businesses so that vehicles from out of state could be assessed at the local business as opposed to having to go to the sheriff's office every time. Simple things like that we need to be looking at and measuring and changing.
Very good. Matt, did you want to add anything or respond?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Very good. I want to move on to another issue in your district. It's called Certificate of Need. And this is an issue that's essentially there is a law on the books that allows existing healthcare providers to have veto authority before another healthcare provider or medical provider moves into a community. Julia, I'm going to go to you on this. This is something you've weighed in on your website. Tell us, where do you stand on certificate of need and healthcare competition?
This is a perfect example of a law that had purpose many years ago, but is really choking Kentucky. If you speak with Marianne Proctor, she put forth 3 bills on this to try to reduce this, and I believe we really need to make the change even more aggressive than what she proposed. And so I hope to get in there and help her with this. But when she talks with the constituents, and this would be our constituents as well up north, people cannot get basic medical needs. They're going across the river for maternal care. They're going across the river for radiology and different aspects of imaging. And so, and this is, we need to move on this. And it got killed, unfortunately. But I would like to pick that mantle up with Marianne, and let's make this change, because we need Kentucky open for business in the medical field, and we need to do that expediently.
Very good. Matt, have you weighed in on this issue? How familiar are you with this issue of certificate of need?
I'm fairly familiar with it, is what I would say. The way you explain the process is not how I understand it. I believe there's an administrative judge who finally makes the determination. I'm not sure that there's a veto, but again, I won't claim to know the process intimately. So the reason I do know something about it is, for many years I've been involved in a group called Scott County United, and it's an economic development group that works here in Scott County. A few months ago, back in the fall, the CEO of our local hospital came to the group and was telling us about an attempt to open another facility in Scott County, and he was explaining the situation. I grinned and raised my hand, and he chuckled because he knew where I was going, and he knows I'm a free market guy. And I said, Chuck, Cliff, why should I have to compete in the free market, but you not have to compete in the free market? And he explained to me, he said, Matt, it's not a free market. We're in the most regulated market in the country. He said 80 to 90% of my patients are on Medicare and Medicaid. I have to accept whatever the government pays when they walk in the door. I can't refuse them service. And he said, the reality is there's entities that will want to come to the community and open up the most profitable aspect of a business, of that hospital business, which is the emergency room. And he said, if they do that and they remove any portion of that emergency room revenue, I am then not able to provide all the other services that I provide through my hospital. And so the result is the community loses. We lose all those other services that community hospital then provides, and we have to then go somewhere else. So maybe we create competition for the emergency room, but then we lose some of the other services. And so what I would say is, this is a classic example. On the surface, that an idea looks good, but then when you research and you learn more and you understand the issue on a deeper level, you start understanding there might be some unintended consequences. And so what I would say is, we probably need to reform certificate of need, but I'm not sure we need to completely eliminate it. I think there's a working group. I think I heard that in Frankfurt that started this past session that is working on maybe some ideas or suggestions for reforming certificate of need. And I would be strongly interested in hearing about that. But to completely eliminate it, based upon what I know right now, I don't think it's a good idea. And again, that's what I've done my entire career. I've looked at issues, I've understood them on a deep level, and then helped affect policy for a multinational corporation that operates throughout North America to understand, if we do this, these are the unintended consequences. And we got to understand exactly what we're doing here.
Very good. Thank you for that response. Julie, did you want to add anything to that?
Sure. And our neighboring states have eliminated this up to the degree that it impacts only nursing homes, and have met with success with this. So I think we need to, as Matt is saying, we study, we research it, but Marianne Proctor has been looking to that. And what I see is we need to take action on this. And unfortunately, it was killed in the legislature this year. And I think we need to pick it up again and run with it.
Kentucky is at a crossroads. We can choose to give in to the radical left, or we can choose to engage the culture in a God-honoring way.
I started the Commonwealth Policy Center because I believe that Christians have a responsibility to influence government and society to the glory of God. While the Commonwealth Policy Center's made a significant impact, our work isn't finished. If you'd like to join our movement working for timeless values, then head to our website.
To learn more, go to commonwealthpolicycenter.org.
Okay, moving on to another hot issue in the General Assembly, abortion exceptions. Of course, as you both know, Kentucky is an abortion-free state. The only exception for abortion in the Commonwealth is to preserve the mother's life or health. This last session, there were a couple of proposals to allow for other exceptions to abortion. Matt, I'm going to go to you. First of all, when do you believe that life begins?
I believe it begins at conception.
Okay. And then the second question, should there be exceptions based on the circumstances of conception?
I think you're alluding to the rape exception or exemption that has been bandied about. My answer is no to that for two reasons. And I'll talk about maybe the lesser reason first because it's just easier to talk about. And I hope I can have maybe a little more time on this. I've been briefed on some other things, but this is a very important issue that deserves nuance. So
Go ahead.
First is the mechanics or the logistics of how something like that would work. So the first question is, do you name an accuser, or do you name a perpetrator or not name a perpetrator? If you don't name a perpetrator, there's no point in having the exemption. We then have abortion on demand. So if you name the perpetrator, then the logistics of that becomes tricky. First of all, we have to collect a DNA sample of someone who's been accused of a crime that hasn't gone through the due process. And so we have now invaded their privacy. And so, but then also, do we have to wait till the crime is completely adjudicated before the woman can have the abortion? If we do not, then we have the potential for someone being exonerated. Maybe the abortion didn't occur, and now we've terminated a pregnancy. Or if we do let it be adjudicated, we're looking at a very, very late term abortion if the case can even be adjudicated before the pregnancy comes to term. So those are just some of the logistic things. Again, so when you think about policy, you've got to think about those things. You got to understand those before you make a decision. But the other is just the philosophical or moral question. I can't be supportive of it. And you know, when I think about the situation, it's an absolute tragic situation. And it's often hard to find any kind of good or any way to make a tragic situation okay or better. So what I try to look at is how do I create an equation to understand this better? And so both sides of the equation, we have the trauma of rape and the victim of rape. And that is, again, absolutely horrible. So that's on both sides of the equation. And so if we look on the side of the equation where we consider allowing that pregnancy to be terminated, we're going to have additional trauma to the victim. Abortion causes trauma to the mother. Everything I've read, people that I've talked to who have gone through that process will tell you that causes trauma. So we're now piling trauma on top of trauma. And now we also have a terminate a life. On the other side, maybe there is trauma for carrying a pregnancy that is the result of rape to term. But we don't have a dead child on that side of the equation. So I think from a practical standpoint or a morality standpoint, I just can't in good conscience support that exemption.
Thank you, Matt, for explaining. And your response, by the way, garnered the endorsement of Kentucky Right to Life. Julia, Jaddock, when do you believe that life begins?
I believe that life begins at conception.
And then do you think there should be exceptions based on the circumstances of how a child was conceived, whether rape or incest?
You know, I was speaking with Brittany Bogard, and she, one of her sayings, and I'll explain who Brittany Bogard is she's an incredible investor in her community. She's made incredible changes in the community she lives in. She's caring for those in need. She's helping at-risk children. And Brittany is a child of incest and rape. And what she says is, I have never heard anyone who suffered from the loss of being aborted ever be able to speak up because they don't have a voice. And so I love what she says in that, because it shines light on where the issue really is. Where does life begin? If life has begun, then life must be protected by our Constitution with everything in us. And so it becomes, even with trauma and everything else going on, the issue becomes straightforward. Where does life begin? And life needs to be protected. And in that, we are actually being, if we're pro-life, we're being pro-mom, because of what Matt even raised, the issues there of the cost of abortion, the difficulties that women go through 10, 15, 20, 30 years later are grieving what they have. And they are normally often the biggest advocates for pro-life, because they know, hey, that life began inside of me, and I don't want anyone else to go through what I've gone through.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Matt, go ahead.
If I could have
30
just 10
seconds.
more seconds, I would say you did mention that I am endorsed by Kentucky Right to Life. I'm proud of that endorsement. And one of the reasons they specified is my wife and I have a long history of supporting life-affirming causes. We've been supporters of the Not Alone Pregnancy Center in Georgetown, for example, because I believe that if we're going to have this position, we also have to help mothers who find themselves in a very difficult situation, single mothers, whatever the situation may be, and the daunting prospect of raising a child alone. So we've got to walk beside them, meet them where they are, provide them with the services that they need. And so in addition to the positions that I have, I've got a long history of supporting life-affirming causes.
Very good. Thank you. And also, I'd be remiss if I failed to mention that, Julia, I believe you garnered the endorsement of Northern Kentucky Right to Life. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes. And probably why that has been garnered, and also I am recommended by the Kentucky Right to Life, is yes. I have been, what is it, put your money where your mouth is, or put your mouth where your money is, however you want to say that. But from a very young person, I was made aware of the cost and consequence of abortion, and really have spent my life supporting verbally that conversation with women that are struggling through it, women that are considering it. And so it has been a life passion to soften the blows of that. And one of the key things is often this happens because the mother doesn't know her value. So that's something I invest in, is just communicating, hey, you have value, therefore the life inside of you has value as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to another hot topic from this last legislative session. DEI stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. There were 3 bills proposed in our state legislature that pushed back against DEI, 2 at the post-secondary education level, 1 that would have affected K through 12. Matt, I want to go to you. The problem with the DEI, I think most people see the good in diversity. They see the good in including all Kentuckians, regardless of their race, ethnicity, or gender. But the problem is with equity. Do you see that as a problem being pushed in our public schools?
Absolutely. As Vice President of Human Resources at Fortitude America for North American operations, I probably understand DEI maybe more than I understand any other topic that we're going to talk about through this cycle. Okay. I understand it on a deep level. Equity is a problem. Thomas Sowell, the brilliant Thomas Sowell, has a great YouTube video that I would encourage anybody who wants to become more educated about this topic to watch. He's way smarter than me and way more eloquent of a speaker. But he basically uses kind of the Adam Smith from Wealth of Nations analogy of the invisible hand. So we get an invisible hand here with equity that isn't productive and has bad intentions. And so I'm very much opposed to any type of initiatives to promote equity or to base decisions on someone's color of their skin, gender, anything like that. I believe firmly that Martin Luther King was right, and we got to judge people on the content of their character.
Matt, let me ask you this. I want to press into that a little bit. In your experience in human resources, did you see where equity ended up resulting in quotas or where merit wasn't considered, where they would look at certain categories of people instead of the merits of their work. Is that something you saw firsthand?
No, and here's why, because I fought against it. And I was effective at fighting against it because I had a career of being an effective leader, a good decision maker, a good problem solver. And so I built capital and equity with the people who would ultimately make that decision. They trusted my judgment. And I was successfully able to push back against those ideas. And I did it for two reasons. Number one, I felt, again, a moral responsibility to do it. I didn't feel like it was morally correct for us to say, young man or young woman, for whatever reason, you can't have this job to support your family because you don't have the right skin color or the right gender or whatever that may be. But also from a practical standpoint, my job was to make human resources the most effective it could be for our business unit. And it was very important to me that we were hiring the right person for the right job. And so, again, I became very educated about the DEI issue. I was able to talk very maybe not eloquently, but very passionately and informed when I was presenting those arguments, and I was very successful at pushing back. Now, our company does have a diversity and inclusion program. We're very proud of that because, to your point, we recognize the value in diversity, true diversity, not based upon those superficial characteristics like race or skin color, but people's backgrounds, the things that truly make us different types of thinkers. Our company supports that, and I'm proud that our company supports that, but we have no quotas or anything like that because I was successful pushing back on that.
Very good. Julia, would you have voted for pushback against DEI policies in colleges and universities and in K through 12 if you were in the state Senate?
Yes, I wish that bill had gone through. I think we had one, and it also was a missed opportunity. And I'll tell you why. My youngest daughter, is graduating right now, and we just did a tour of University of Louisville, and that's going to be her school of choice. And as we did this tour, here's 11 of our finest, brightest standing up in front of us, getting ready to give us a tour. And they began by saying, "Hi, my name is," let's just say, Julia, and I use she, her pronouns. "Hi, my name is Joe, and I use he, him pronouns." And I'll tell you, they went across all 11 of those beautiful students, and every one of them used the same pronouns I would use. And I thought, what are we doing? What are we serving? And what are we trying? What agenda are we trying to push on to our brightest and finest? And that needs to stop. It is not reflective of Kentucky. It is not reflective of family values, and it really is a confusing component to be put into our higher education.
Very good. Moving on to another important issue that comes up every legislative session, or it seems to have the last several years, Second Amendment. Now, April 10th marked the 1-year anniversary of the mass shooting at the Fifth Third Bank in Louisville, where 5 people were killed. In response, the CAR Act was introduced. CAR stands for Crisis Aversion and Rights Retention, which allows for the temporary transfer of firearms away from people on the brink of crisis. Matt, I want to go to you for 2 questions here. One is, are you a Second Amendment supporter? Where do you stand on the Second Amendment?
Absolutely. And that's why I've been endorsed by the NRA.
Okay. And then secondly, would you have supported something like the CAR Act?
No, not even close. It's one of the reasons I got into this race. When I was deliberating whether I should or not, that CAR Act was introduced. I think the term is pre-filed. And to think that it was not only pre-filed, but pre-filed by a Republican scared me. And so I wanted to make sure, again, that the person representing this district that would have one of those votes was a conservative, a supporter of our Second Amendment rights, but also someone who would be effective, that when those bad ideas come to Frankfort, could explain to everybody why this is a bad idea and can build consensus around that position.
Yeah. So, Matt, I want to follow up. What is your response, or what, if any, solution is there to mass shootings? Of course, it's horrible. We see these time and again in the news. What would be a public policy solution to mass shootings? Is this something you've thought through?
I have. The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun, or a gal with a gun. and typically, not in all cases, but the overwhelming majority of these cases, they happen in gun-free zones where, and sadly, it often happens in our schools. Now, we're very fortunate in Scott County that our city and county government have partnered, and we have armed resource officers at our schools. That makes me a lot more comfortable as a parent. And so, I would be very much in support of looking at how we can, do more of that, and ensure that, again, when the bad guy with the gun, it shows up, because it's going to happen. Cain killed Abel with a rock. We're going to continue to have these issues, but that when that bad guy or gal with the gun shows up, there's a good guy or gal with the gun there to stop.
Okay, very good. Julia, CAR Act, the Crisis Aversion and Rights Retention, good idea or a bad idea? How would you have voted on that if it came up, if you were in the state Senate?
I would have voted no. It's a bad idea. It can maybe look good if you think, hey, there's some reasons for this, but absolutely not, because it drives right at our constitutional rights, and it drives right at a fundamental basic right, and that is the right to bear arms. And that right keeps checks and balances in a free society. We talk about our government and the checks and balances, but one of the key things to averting tyranny is to make sure we have the right to bear arms. And so when we start messing with laws that can make judgment calls on a person's mental capacity or these kind of things, you ad hoc, then we are messing with our rights and on a very slippery slope to losing our rights altogether. I will tell you, as a young child, I learned very early on the meaning of having the right to bear arms. So my mom had my dad's military issue gun. A man was breaking through our door, and she had that gun in her lap, never even had to point it. But the moment that man made his way through the door, she merely gestured, and he backed right out, and a situation handled. And so all the more, and when I think of the world scene, I'm not sure how we are on time, but when I think of the world scene, I think of all the more the world needs to know that we can protect ourselves in our homes, in our communities, and we avoid, again, situation handled.
Okay, very good. Matt, did you want to respond?
No.
And we are running close to the end here, but
yeah, no, thank you.
Good. Okay, moving on to the next issue, sports gambling expansion that passed last legislative session. There was a news story in the financial publication called Morningstar, and it said this, I'll quote from it: Toronto Raptors center Jonte Porter was banned for life from the NBA after he placed at least 13 bets on NBA games using an associate's sportsbook account. He disclosed confidential information to bettors and limited his participation in at least one game so that a certain bet would pay out. Matt, I'm going to go to you on this. Again, I'm not sure. Now, it is public policy in Kentucky. Sports gambling is legal. There is a state regulated framework for it. But do you believe that legalized sports gambling corrupts sports?
I think that's the potential to. As someone who grew up idolizing Pete Rose and still believes he should be in the Hall of Fame, it absolutely does. And we've got the situation with Shohei Ohtani right now, who there's some questions around what his involvement may or may not have been around sports gambling. And I'm not offering an opinion on him, so please let's keep that straight. But I'm just saying it certainly has the potential to corrupt the integrity of the game. I see that potential.
Okay. Julia, where do you stand on sports gambling expansion?
Sports gambling, truly the fact that we have put this on our phones, in our homes, in our children's bedrooms, is, to me, robbing and raking the heart of Kentucky. I think if, to whatever degree I can push back on this, I will. This is a major issue. When we look at statistics of gambling, the cost is horrific. We send it to our public schools. We send the money to build our towns. But I'm thinking we're robbing the hearts of the next generation at the cost of it. Is it worth it? I say no, absolutely not. We need to push back on this issue.
Very good. Well, we are out of time here. I want to again thank both of you for joining us and thank all of those who are tuned in to watch this. You each have up to 2 minutes for closing statements. And I started with Matt before. So Julia, we'll begin with you for your closing statements. Tell the voters, make a case for your candidacy for them to vote on May the 21st.
I tell you what, folks, if you've made it to this part in the video, then you really care about Kentucky. And I want you to know I care about Kentucky with you. I would like your vote May 21st because I will fight for faith and family values. I am 100% pro-life. I am pro-family, and that's probably the clear distinctive in this race, that I will fight on these agendas tooth and nail because we need the long game. We need to build into our children. We need to build into our youth. We need to build into our college students fundamental values that we hold dear and near as Kentuckians. And so you can count on me to be guided by faith and family values as I serve you in the State Senate, District 17.
Very good. Thank you so much, Julia Jaddock. Matt Nunn, you get the last word.
Thank you, Richard. And thank you, everyone who took the time to watch this. It's very important that people are involved in our political process and are informed voters. And so I'm very thankful for anyone who has taken the time to do this, and I'm proud of you. So, one of the things I tell people is I've never seen a bill pass or fail on a 1-0 vote. It takes a consensus, and you need someone representing you that can build consensus around good ideas. And I've talked at length about my career doing that. There's lots of documented examples in this community. You can talk to people that know that I've done that. You can go to my Facebook page and read letters of recommendation from full-bird colonels and people at my company on boards of directors who have seen me do that and trust my ability to do that. So I think really as a voter, you need to ask yourself 2 questions. Can I trust that person to represent my values, number 1? And number 2, will they be effective when they do? Elections have consequences, so it's important that you can confidently answer yes to both of those questions. And I think I'm clearly someone that you can confidently answer yes on both of those questions. So I ask for your vote and your support.
Very good. Thank you so much, Matt Nunn and Julia Jaddock. I want to personally thank both of you for taking interest in serving the Senate District 17. Best wishes to both of you. Elections coming up soon. For all of you tuned in, early voting begins on May the 16th, and then Election Day is May the 21st. Thanks again. May God bless you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Richard.